From giving us a closer look at Mel Gibson's antagonist to how the show's structured like a trilogy of 90-minute movies, here's what you need to know about the exciting new images from John Wick, the Continental. The show will chart Winston Scott's rise to power, and the new promo stills reveal a first look at his rival played by Mel Gibson. In case you don't know, Mel will be appearing as Cormac, and from what I've seen so far, he's the show's main villain, and I'm assuming he outranks the young Winston Scott. Remember, the Continental's set way back in the 1970s. Winston hasn't become the owner of the hotel yet, with Cormac holding that position during this decade. Gibson's character is described as a kingpin, someone that calls the shots in a corrupt and crime-riddled New York City. And he certainly looks powerful in the pictures I saw. Let me put it this way. If I saw Cormac heading toward me, I'd cross the street fast. That said, this isn't the first time we're seeing Cormac. Back in June 2023, the producers gave us our first look at the character, and I knew he was bad news from the moment I laid eyes on him. The recent pictures have a more stylized vibe to them, probably because they were taken specifically as promotional material. The stills from before looked like they were captured from specific scenes. Sure, Cormac's casually leaning on a chair, but he also has a mysterious pin on his suit. Could that be a mark of his power? Or maybe a sign of his membership in the mysterious high table? There's a lot we've yet to learn about the character, and luckily, Mel Gibson gave us a few details to chew through. For starters, Cormac was a father figure to Winston for some time. That's not to say he's a caring dude, though. Based on what Mel said, the guy torments Scott as much as he trains him. The pair met when Winston was still learning the ropes, and at first, he admired Cormac for his experience. But that started to change as he grew older. Eventually, he recognizes how selfish Cormac can be, as well as the abuse in their relationship. Considering this is Winston's origin story, it makes sense to pit him against a proper crime boss. By the way, we're not only going to see Scott's history on the show. Sharon's going to be there from the start, which I'm pretty grateful for. This is a much younger Sharon than the one we're used to, so Lance Reddick won't be reappearing. He could have shot a few more scenes before his sudden death, but at least we'll learn more about the character he brought to life. We got to look at Ayomide Adegun's portrayal of Sharon in the new pictures too, and I have to say, the actor looks like he was born for this part. The same goes for Colin Woodell, the guy playing Winston himself, so I'd say the show's done a great job with casting. There's also some new info about the show's plot, mostly concerning how Winston and Cormac will interact. It all has to do with Winston's older brother, Frankie. By the time the show starts, Winston's already distanced himself from Cormac, but he's forced to reunite with this abusive father figure after Frankie steals something. Just like any Continental manager, Cormac has people to answer to, namely, the high table. I'm not sure if Frankie steals something from the table or from another one of Cormac's superiors, but whatever it is, it'll set the events of the show in motion. Winston's gonna have to step in to save his brother, and Cormac himself will ask his former protege to come back to the fold. From where I'm sitting, the Continental's already honoring John Wick's legacy of complex characters. These aren't one-dimensional heroes and villains we're talking about. They'll be on the same side, but have different goals, and that'll create multiple plot threads for the rest of the season. On top of Cormac's background, the show will present an alternate history of the 70s, covering real-life events through a John Wick-inspired lens. For starters, the show will depict the UK's so-called Winter of Discontent. Trade unions were facing off with the British government at the time, going on strike because they wanted higher pay rates. And to make things worse, the UK was going through one of its coldest winters in nearly 2 decades. Things were pretty bad over in New York as well, with garbage collector strikes, leading to mountains of trash covering the city. That's probably how Winston gets involved, but he's an Englishman, so there's a chance he'll head back across the pond to take care of some stuff. He probably spent years over there before moving to New York, and must have made connections with crime families during that time. On top of that, the Continental will also focus on the rise of the American Mafia, although it'll be a slightly altered version of those events. The crime families had been powerful for much of the 20th century, but in the 70s, their influence reached a whole new level. The American Mafia became a bona fide economic powerhouse in this decade, and I can't wait to see how that affects Winston and the Continental. We all know the rule: there's no business allowed on Continental grounds. It's supposed to be a safe space for all manner of criminals, so I'm willing to bet a powerful mafioso will turn up there to ask for sanctuary. This is a theory I'm working with. The Mafia's actual role in the Continental might be way different, but it seems as likely a storyline as any. Honestly, I've barely scratched the surface of this show's potential. You've got to understand, the Continental's more than a prequel. It's setting up an entire John Wick cinematic universe. There's already a lot of content to dig into thanks to the 4 films, and word on the block is that a 5th movie is in development. It was touch and go for a while because Chad Stahelski didn't want to commit to the project before he had a good idea. I guess the story finally came to him, with the studio announcing multiple new projects. I know what you're thinking. Doesn't Baba Yaga die at the end of Chapter 4? It sure seemed like it, but at the same time, do we really see him die? All we see is him falling to the side, after which we cut to the funeral scene, where Winston says his goodbyes. I'd have assumed John would get a more dramatic death scene, which is why I think he's secretly still alive. I mean, the upcoming Chapter 5 kinda confirms it, but Chad's also been vocal about hiring new actors for the John Wick universe, including Cillian Murphy, Charlize Theron, and Michelle Yeoh. The thing is, no one can replace the iconic Keanu Reeves, so there's a high chance that Wick might come back from the grave. Then again, not all these new projects are centered around Baba Yaga. Apart from the Continental, there's another spin-off named The Ballerina coming up. Remember that exhausted dancer from Chapter 2? Yeah, the leader of the Ruska Roma was really letting her have it, but she might get her revenge in her solo outing. The spin-off's set sometime between Chapters 3 and 4, and it'll help expand the John Wick universe into new territory. Ana de Armas will be playing the deadly assassin in the spin-off, and let me just say, what an excellent choice for a lead actress. After Knives Out and No Time to Die, de Armas is a legit draw for audiences, and she definitely has the chops to pull off complex action sequences. Not to mention, The Ballerina will feature Lance Reddick's last outing as Sharon. So if you're upset he's not part of the Continental, this other spin-off's got you covered. In case you're wondering, John Wick's also showing up in the upcoming prequel. Granted, it's not a huge role, but it's enough to scratch that Baba Yaga itch. As for the Continental, the storyline, characters, and setting are enough to look forward to. But I also love the show's unique structure. It's almost like a trilogy of 90-minute movies. The showrunner wanted the Continental to seem like an event series, and giving fans 3 extra-long episodes seems like the right way to do that. That's quite different from most streaming shows out there, because they usually go for a 6 to 12 run of 45-minute long episodes. There's a ton of world building in store, and I hope the Continental proves that it's not only a cash grab. So, from the show's structure as a trilogy of 90-minute episodes, to our latest look at Mel Gibson in the recent promotional stills, that was all you needed to know about the exciting new images from John Wick: The Continental.